like we show up to the game of life. Life throws us a curveball, we swing and miss. Those who go, well, that's evidence that I'm never going to achieve my dreams. Those are the people who don't make it. The people who I see make it are the ones who show up to the game of life. Life throws them a curveball, they swing and miss and say, what can I do differently next time to give myself a better chance at hitting the ball? Maybe it was my form. Maybe I need more repetitions. Maybe, I need to prepare myself different. Maybe I need more sleep. It's almost like a scientific approach of evaluating where did I miss the mark and where can I improve? And that's where failure comes in. Failure shows you the way by showing you what's not the way. Failure is a guide to success, not the deterrent from success.
Well, welcome to Cultural Catalyst, where we teach you how to be fully live, co-labor with God, and transform your world. I'm your host, Kris Vallotton, and today I have a very interesting guest and a good friend of mine, Bryant Ellis. So welcome to Cultural Catalyst.
Thanks for having me, Kris.
I'm going to tell a little bit about your story, and you can fix it if I get it wrong.
Okay, yeah.
So you are the founder of Adventure Challenge, which is very interesting. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But you are also a Forbes under 30 Forbes 30 under 30. I think I got that right.
You got that right. Yep.
Honorary. Did I say that right?
Yeah, I think so. That
You've been
sounds right.
honored by
Yes,
Forbes
yes.
30 when you were under 30.
Yeah.
And today you've sold over 3 million Adventure Challenge products globally. Mm-hmm. And I got to be a part of your story, not your story, but I mean I've known you since you started that company and watched just like explode.
Yeah.
So what is Adventure Challenge? Let's start right there.
So the best way to describe it is they're scratch-off adventure books.
Okay.
Where you can't actually see what any of the adventures are in the book until you scratch off this lottery ticket scratcher material, and then it tells you what to go do. So you have no idea what you're going to get yourself into until you're like, let's play the game, let's do the book. And so we have one for couples, like dating, for families, one to do by yourself. And so we've created books for all different types of genres. And so that's essentially what it is. It's a book game with it comes with like a Polaroid camera. So when you do the adventure, you take a picture, and it's like a little keepsake portfolio of all the adventures you've been on.
So you kind of keep a journal of your adventure?
Yeah, it's like a journal of the adventure after you're
Okay,
done.
so what would a dating one be like? So you agree with this woman or this man to be on an adventure challenge?
Yeah.
And you go, okay, I don't know what we're going to do tonight. Here's the challenge.
Yeah. So you get the book, you open it up, you scratch off one of the squares. It tells you like a little hint about what you're going to do.
Okay.
Like it says like how much money it's going to cost, how much time it'll take, just so you know what you're getting into. Yeah. So you're not totally blinded by the event, but you don't know what the activity is. So you scratch off the little, material, and one of the adventures would be like, you're going to make an apple pie together, but one of you is going to be blindfolded, and the other person who's not blindfolded is going to be guiding you to do the cooking with their hands. So it's cute. It's flirty. There's some touching.
Yeah.
It's taking something that's a little ordinary and adding an adventurous element to it. And so all the adventures are similar to that. It's not like you hear the Adventure Challenge and you think skydiving, bungee jumping, or swimming with sharks. Yeah. It's not like that. It's this aspect of novelty, bringing something new to the relationship. And when you're doing something new, it opens up new conversation. It opens up, different dialogue, and I mean, it's just super fun. So,
how many different kinds of adventures do you have right now, approximately?
Oh, hundreds. I mean, each book has 50 adventures.
And how many books are there? Hundreds?
7 or 8 different books right now.
Okay.
But I mean, to create the book, I created probably 300 adventures, and then we tested all of them to see which ones were the best. And so and it's evolved over the years. So the adventures in the books are tested and focus group studied, and all of these things to make sure these are fun to do.
You're not eating worms or something.
Oh yeah, it's not like Fear Factor. They're all things that I like to do.
Yeah.
I enjoy doing, whether with my girlfriend or with my friends or community. I made the book because I have ADHD, and I hated going to game nights where you're just sitting around playing Settlers of Catan or a boring game.
Bro, you're speaking my language.
I know, and I don't know what it was, but I was like, dude, if somebody made a game that every time you played it, you did something different, and you didn't know what you were getting yourself into until you decided to play. I was like, that'd be a game I'd like to play. And, it then evolved into this whole thing.
You came up with the idea?
Yes, I did. Yeah, the idea was all mine. Well, it's kind of interesting.
Was there any genesis to the idea, or just woke up one day and had it in your mind?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I had the concept of a game like that, where it was like, if somebody could make a game that you don't know what you're playing until you play it, I'd buy that game. And I remember having that thought like 10 years ago, and I just let it go. I had the thought, it went away. I was having a quiet time, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And I was worshiping. I wasn't thinking about ideas. I wasn't asking God for anything. And I saw a picture of the book open up, and there was the adventures covered with the lottery ticket scratcher. And I literally thought...
Oh, in your mind?
In my mind. I saw a picture of it in my head. And I thought, that's such a good idea. And I still have the screenshot. I just wrote down adventure book scratch off. And I didn't know that 6 years later that would be my whole world. Like that idea would change my life the way I knew it. And so that's where the idea came from. And it was honestly, it was spending time with God, and the idea just came into my head.
And you learned that from Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry?
Yes, absolutely. It was a great investment. Yeah.
Kris Vallotton's messages.
Actually, it wasn't a vision. I actually remember Chris talking, and that brought in the image. And
Can we stop right now?
It was you or Bill, though. I don't remember which one.
No, not Bill, no. That's crazy. Okay, so you created this book. Mm-hmm. How long after that did you actually turn into a business?
So there was a little bit of a process. I'm going to give you kind of the short version because I don't want to go too far into it because it could take hours. But I was actually working a job that I liked, and I was pursuing acting at the time. And so my job was to inspect, skyscrapers, hotels. I took pictures of them, and then I filled out a report for earthquake insurance. I love the job. I don't have a college degree, and this job paid me, $5, $6, $7 a month, which is great for a single person, no college degree.
Is that job still open?
What? I mean, dude, you know how many friends are like, can I get this gig now? Yeah. I burnt that bridge. I'll tell you why. So, there was a day where I was in school, and I had to go get this inspection done. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to make it to this inspection. So I called the building, and I said, hey, can one of your staff take these pictures for me? Which there were no rules against doing that, but I knew it was a gray area. So the staff man took the pictures.
Moving towards black.
Yeah, it was, it wasn't great. And so he sent me all the pictures. I filled out the report and submitted it. The next day I got a call from the owner, and he said, hey, we just got a report that you had them send you pictures for this report. And my first instinct was, no, absolutely not. I didn't do that. I just straight up lied to him. Said, I didn't do that. I filled out the report myself. I was there. I took the pictures. And he was like, okay, well, I don't know what they're talking about, but yeah, they're blaming you for doing that. And I was like, that's crazy. So hung up the phone, immediately felt crazy convicted. And my day was ruined. I was having this conversation with God because I felt like he was like, you need to call and tell the truth. You need to tell him what happened. And I'm like, God, no, I'm going to be an actor. I need this job so I don't have to work as a barista or work as a waiter, and I can go to auditions and I can do this thing. And he was like, so you have taken your life in your control and you don't trust me. And I remember I was walking in circles in my room, and I was like, okay, God, I'm going to trust you. But if I lose this job, like, I'm going to be mad. Yeah. So I called the manager and I said, hey, I lied. I didn't take those pictures. I actually asked him to take the pictures. And he was like, wow, thank you for telling me that. That's so brave of you. You're fired, but thank you for that. That takes so much guts.
I was waiting for that because I didn't know that. I haven't heard that story.
Yeah. And I was devastated. And in that devastation and panic, I'm like, how do I make money? I need to do something. And so I thought, I'm going to create a real estate photography company in Redding because there's not a lot of competition. I know real estate. I know photography. So I drive to Best Buy. I'm filling up a shopping cart with all this, camera gear and stuff. And I walk past this Polaroid camera. And I saw it, and I heard the Holy Spirit say, buy that camera and make your scratch-off book. And I was like, God, I need a business to start. I don't need a hobby. I need a business, not a hobby. That's a hobby. And he was like, buy the camera, start your book. And I felt it like deep in my spirit to do this. And I'm like, whatever. So I get rid of all the camera equipment. I grab the Fujifilm Polaroid camera, swipe my credit card, $70, go to Hobby Lobby, buy a notebook, go home, and I felt like he said, film the whole process as if it's going to be a success. So I have footage on like YouTube where I'm like, hey guys, this is day number 1. I'm gonna make the scratch off book. Here we go. And that set me on the journey of making it. And the rest is kind of history. Now we've sold millions around the world and it's been a crazy experience, but it was wild to be like, God took something that was initially bad and there was so much grace on owning up and fixing the mistake. If I wouldn't have confessed to that lie, I don't think I'd have my company.
Wow.
Because I would have kept working that job that I thought was so important to make $5,000 or $6,000 a month for my career. And I was like, no, it's okay if you get fired because I have something better for you. And
Which is like, hello, my name is failure.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a catalyst for a book too.
Yeah, exactly.
Embracing present failures for future success. We'll talk about that in another minute. So, you and I met the first time in my office. I mean, we'd met a few times, but in my office.
Yeah.
And I think you were about 18 months into your business. It was pretty early on.
Yeah.
And you had already done how much money? Like that?
Millions, yeah.
Millions.
Millions at that point, yeah.
Millions of dollars in that point. And we have this dialogue, and you're like, yeah, I'm making all this money. I remember this conversation.
Yeah,
like you're a brand new entrepreneur. Like
it
kind of happened to you.
Yeah.
Explain that process. And
what part?
I mean, so you got scratch off book, and then you create a business. You have no idea it's going to explode like that, right?
Yeah.
None.
Not at all. No, my goal was to make $2,000 a month so I could go pursue acting. That's what I thought, you know, and so, you know, once we started, I got a business partner and we started making, you know, commercials for it. And, you know, we're running ad dollars for Facebook, Instagram behind it. And we start making this money. And it took a while. It took a lot of work to get these going. But it went from 0 to 100 quick. So it was like a lot of work. It's not working. We try an ad, it doesn't work. We try a video, it doesn't go viral. We try a Kickstarter, the Kickstarter failed. And it was like, I'm just sitting on like 1,000 books, like, man, we're never gonna sell these. And then, you know, I filmed this one ad with my iPhone, edited it on iMovie, gave it to my business partner. He put it in the system and we made our first $1 million with that ad. And so it just took off, and it was
like a Justin Bieber story.
Yeah, it was weird. It was weird, and then you go from being $40,000 in debt to making millions of dollars, and it was crazy. It was absolutely wild.
And then, you know, Forbes, you were one of the top 30 entrepreneurs in the nation under 30 years old.
Yeah.
Was that like year 2 or 3?
That was exactly 2 years ago to the day that I won that award.
And how many years have you been in business?
Well, for this company, 6 years.
6 years.
6 years, yeah. So it was about 4 years into it to when I won the Forbes 30 Under 30 award.
That's insane.
Yeah, so it was, and I think I could have won it, but maybe a few years before, but I had someone on my team who was like, you could win this award. And I was like, I didn't even think I'd be eligible. And I had the interview with the judges, and there were like 10,000 over 10,000 people who were applying for this award. And I didn't know I wanted it so bad until I was told maybe you could get it. And I'm having these interviews with the judges, and there was a lot of thoughts. I was like, I feel like Forbes is a really, really like politically left-leaning company. I'm more conservative. I don't know if they're gonna like me. And I was like, I don't even think I'm gonna get this award because of, and so it was crazy that I woke up, December 1st, 2 years ago today, I woke up and I had the email that you've won, and it was exciting. It was really
exciting. How has that changed your life? Like, you had a journey with, like, I mean, you'd never run a company big like that. All of a sudden, you have all these employees struggling with challenging anxiety. Tell me a little bit about that. And, like, how did you work through all of that? Because you suddenly had all this responsibility you didn't even ask for.
Yeah. There's a quote from Jim Carrey. He says, I wish everyone could get rich and famous so they could see that getting rich and famous isn't the answer. I'm not famous, obviously. I made a lot of money really quick, a lot of success in a short window of time. I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned from the success I've had is external success does not fix internal wounds and internal things you're going through. And I think that was a harder pill to swallow, because a lot of us are chasing these dangling carrots of like, if I can achieve this, then I'm lovable. If I can achieve this, then I'm worthy of this. If I can do this, and I'll feel good about myself. Like, we all have insecurities and things we're struggling with, but if you think that these external awards are going to fix those things, then you're in for a rude awakening. And a lot of us never achieve the external carrot that we're dangling, and so we kind of put our hope in it. Like, money's our God. Money's, achieving this award's my God. If I were to get this would fix the problems. And the biggest thing was, it didn't fix any of my problems. It actually heightened them, because then once you don't have, money's a very big God until you realize how small it is. And once I achieved and got the money that I wanted, then it was like, well, I'm hopeless, because all of this anxiety, insecurity, and things that I'm dealing with, like, who's going to save me from it? And obviously people say, well, it was God, but it was all these subconscious ideas of, no, these things are going to make me feel better. And it took me getting them to realize, oh, it's actually not going to get me to where I need to go. It's not going to fix the pain. And it actually, so 2 years ago, I went on a really profound journey of, and I never lost my relationship with the Lord in the process of building the company, but it did suffer.
Yeah.
And I think it's really significant, even just being here talking to you today, knowing that 2 years ago today, I won the award, because that was the moment when I was like, I won Forbes 30 Under 30, the award I thought was going to make me feel like I'm on top of the world and I'm the king of entrepreneurs. And it made me feel, it was like a drug. Like, you feel this moment of euphoria, and then you feel even worse than you did before, because you think it's like a medication. It's not going to work.
Do you feel like an imposter?
Yeah. And so that's when I decided I'm going to go on this journey and really work through the things that are plaguing me, my pain, my insecurities, all of this stuff. I'm going to go on a journey of finding healing for that, instead of trying to use these external things as validation to cover up and numb them. So does that answer your question?
Yeah,
okay.
That's incredible. Mm. Yeah, it really does. And so, yeah, it's an amazing, wonderful story. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the book.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so first of all, I have yet to. All I've done is skim this book, because I just got it. Actually, it's not even. I don't think it's released quite yet. Is
no,
it?
Yeah, it releases January 2nd.
January 2nd. So we got another month before it comes out. Mm-hmm. But I did skim it, and I do love what. Let me just read part of this right here. Mm-hmm. The difference between those who succeed and those who cannot can be narrowed down to a common trait. Those who see failure as the end, and those who understand failure to be an education for their future success. I want to read the next paragraph. Yeah. These engaging letters personify failure as your mentor, your guide, and friend, offering profound insights into the crucial role it plays in shaping your future success and the success it has helped create throughout history. And so each one of these chapters is like failure is talking to you. Yeah, it's like failure is a human almost. Yeah, and it's telling you what you could learn from how you failed in that particular.
Exactly.
Tell them about that.
Yeah, each letter is like failure is addressing you as the reader, and so I feel like we lose more in life from our fear of failure than we actually do from failure. And I wanted to create a book that helped people understand the role that failure plays in your life.
This is so good.
And so we show up to the game of life. Life throws us a curveball, we swing and miss. Those who go, well, that's evidence that I'm never going to achieve my dreams. Those are the people who don't make it. The people who I see make it are the ones who show up to the game of life. Life throws them a curveball, they swing and miss, and say, what can I do differently next time to give myself a better chance at hitting the ball? Maybe it was my form. Maybe I need more repetitions. Maybe, I need to prepare myself different. Maybe I need more sleep. It's almost like a scientific approach of evaluating where did I miss the mark, and where can I improve? And that's where failure comes in. Failure shows you the way by showing you what's not the way. Failure is a guide to success, not the deterrent from success. In the book it says he says, I am not the opposite of your success, I'm the prerequisite. Without failure, you actually can't succeed. And so I was like, if I could create a book that helped people embrace the journey of getting to know what failure does for you, that's a book I would have given to my 18-year-old self. And so when I went on the journey of making it, I was telling you it took me about 4 years to write. It's a small book. You can see it's not like a big book.
That is an extraordinary long time to write a book.
Very long time. Yeah. I'm not a writer. So, now I am. But
done well.
But
actually.
thank you, I appreciate it. But yeah, it took a long time. I wanted it to be done well. I wanted each letter to feel like something I wanted to give my past self or my current self, or I'd want to give. I coach and mentor different entrepreneurs. I wanted to make it to where I could give it to them and they could go like, this is helping me embrace failure. This is helping me understand that this risk I'm taking has a purpose and it's not going to lead me to my detriment, but to my, success.
This I said to you off camera that this reminds me of a TED Talk. Like this ought to be a few TED Talks. Actually.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me one of your greatest failures, and let me know what you learned from it.
Great.
Well, it didn't have to be the greatest. Just,
okay.
How about one?
Do you want like? I told you about the $1 million I lost, right?
No. Tell me that one.
I didn't tell you about that one.
If I did, you didn't tell these guys.
So I lost my first $1 million that I ever made.
How'd you do that?
By investing it in a company that went bankrupt. The lesson I learned.
I have a couple of those stories.
Do you? Oh my gosh. Yeah. So it was during COVID. I had made my first $1 million. Super excited. I was like, yeah, I'm a millionaire. Blah blah blah. And one of my friends called me and he was like, hey, I work for this company. I know the owner. He's incredible. They just got an order from the state of Illinois to buy all these masks, but they don't have the capital to get the inventory from China to the state of Illinois. They showed me the contract. It was from the feds. It was a legit contract. I had my lawyers look at it. He was like, they need $1 million to free the inventory and they'll pay you 1.2 back. So basically you make $200,000 for loaning the money for 10 days. And I'm like, this is great. This is like, I have capital. It's during COVID. Not a lot of people have capital. I'm going to make $200,000 in 10 days. So wired all of the money and I have not seen a penny of it to this day. And what I learned.
Do you know, I have a friend that did the same thing with the same, I don't know if it's the same company.
I bet you it's the same company because he got about $8 million.
I think he's a scammer.
Yeah. So with this situation, he does a lot of shady stuff. With this situation in particular, when the money hit his account, the IRS seized it because he had owed so much money. So that's where my money went, and he's going to go to jail for a long time, I found out. But it was a bad situation, and I learned, don't invest more than you're willing to lose. That was the lesson I took from that. But it was interesting because I made more money after that. Obviously, it could have been devastating if I won the lottery and then lost it all. That would have been awful. But there's that. But that's a big failure that I tell people because it's like, yeah, that feels really extreme. But some of the failures that have hurt the most. Some of the failures that have hurt the most are the ones where, in the book, I talk about the difference between losing and failing.
Ooh.
Losing is when you show up to a risk unprepared, swing and miss. You don't learn from that. Failing, and this is failing in a positive way, is when you show up to a risk prepared, swing and miss. Because then you can evaluate what you didn't do and say, how can I show up more prepared? But when you lose, it's just you weren't prepared. You were lazy. Don't blame your lack of success on failure. Blame it on you not being powerful in preparing yourself before you go up and take the risk. And so the failures that have hurt the most are the losses where I didn't show up prepared. I was given an opportunity and I decided to wing it and I didn't get the result I wanted. And it was like, dang, I just wasted that whole opportunity because I didn't prepare. And so hiring an employee that you didn't do proper research on, and then you have to find out that you have to let them go.
Oh, really? Does that ever happen?
Yeah, and it's devastating. So it's all these micro mistakes where it's like, I should have been more prepared. Do I learn now to be more prepared? Absolutely. But I think those are the failures that have stung the most in life.
I have a very close person to me that had a $30,000 job real recently. And he was all excited about it, and then this particular job, he didn't get the equipment in time. He was a couple of days late. He kept the customer informed, but just didn't get the equipment in time. He had to rent equipment, and the customer used somebody else and got it $3,000 cheaper.
Dang.
And so he's hot off of that. Like he's just learned. He's just drove back from the customer's house.
That's
you know
rough.
how that feels, right?
Yeah.
And it's a new business, so that's a significant amount of money for him, right? Yeah. And he comes to my driveway and he goes, "I never believe what happened." And he tells me the story, and I'm like, "Okay, so was that a $30,000 education, or is that just a mistake?" He said, "What do you mean by that?" I said, well, this could be a really, like, this could be like a university, first year university you just paid for.
100%. Yeah.
Or you just screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh. I said, well, just if you knew that was going to happen, what would you do now? He said, oh, I would have haven't signed the contract ahead of time. I would have got a down payment for $3,000 or $4,000 on a $30,000 job. Guess what? You just made yourself a whole bunch of money.
Yeah.
Because that will never happen. Well, if it happens to you again, you're going to walk away with the down payment.
And imagine that's a big loss. The $30,000 is a big loss now. But imagine 5 years down the road when he doesn't make that with a $500,000 contract.
Exactly.
And it's like it hurts so bad now, but I love that you took that as an educational time to be like, this was, Dave Ramsey calls it stupid tax.
Yeah.
You know, the tax.
Stupid tax.
Yeah, stupid tax.
Exactly.
And it's funny. It's like, yeah, that's the tax you pay for, but you know, it's educational. It's the price you pay for being uneducated. And I feel like that's what's brilliant about failure is it shows you where your educational gaps are.
Yeah.
And it's like, why would we want to stay blind to that? Why would we want to run with our heads down, going like, I'm perfect, nothing's wrong, I know everything? And it's like, no, like failure reveals to you, holds a mirror up to you and says, look, like if you want to get here, you got to fix this and then we can get there. Versus all of us, you know, whether it's our ego or pride being like, no, I'm going to get there and I don't need any help or I don't need to fix anything and I'm perfect. And
failure has another dimension to it, doesn't it? Like it can, I mean, because sometimes it's not just, I lost the $30,000.
yeah.
Sometimes it's like, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, what happened to me? I sold my business when I moved to Bethel. You probably know the story. I sold my business for about $2.2 million to the company who was supplying us. The escrow was supposed to be 90 days, turned into 18 months. And then the week it was supposed to close, because we actually in escrow, they went bankrupt. And not only did they not pay me, so I didn't have the 2.2 million, I owed 1.8. So
Wow.
you know, I was coming out with what's that, like $300,000 or $400,000. And that was going to be my living at Bethel because I agreed to work for free. And I'm like, here's where I'm going to make. And I'd put 20 years into the business. So,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I spent, like, I learned nothing from that for the first 2 years. All I learned is you're an idiot. You lost your house. I lost my house. I lost my businesses.
Oh, my God.
3 businesses. I lost everything but my 2 cars and my furniture after 20 years. I lost the house my kids grew up in. We built. So we went from living in, you know, not a mansion, but a nice house, to living in an apartment with absolutely no money, owing 127 suppliers. And the reason why I say this is because, you know, sometimes it takes a while for failure to teach you a lesson.
What was the lesson you learned from
Well, one lesson, I learned several lessons. The first one is that I you know, when you're supposed to have a 90-day escrow and it starts going 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, there's no way that any thinking person doesn't know there's something wrong.
Yeah.
But you want to believe what you want to believe. And I didn't have another buyer. So I didn't want to chase away the bad buyer because I didn't have a new buyer. And I already moved to Bethel.
Wow.
So, you know, so it's like I learned that I see what I want to see, not what's true. Like I was smart enough to ask the question, like, and why is the escrow 12 months, 13 months, 14 months? But I didn't actually want to know the answer to that. I just kept alive, like, oh, it's going to work. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then also they were my supplier. So they were supplying auto parts to me. And suppliers have a fill rate. So you order 100 parts and you know, it's normal to get 97 of them, 98.
Yeah.
But for a year, their fill rate was in the 70s. I should have known, like, oh, they're in financial trouble.
Yeah.
So were all these signs, like I mean, as soon as they went broke, I'm like, oh, I knew that. Like you know, it's like I actually knew that.
Yeah.
I actually knew they weren't going to buy me.
Dang.
Like the fantasy that this was going to happen actually kept me from reality.
Wow.
Crazy. And it cost me everything.
Was there a fear that you were never going to make that type of money again? That was like your
Oh
one
my
chance
gosh.
to
I
do
mean,
that?
the first thing that happened is so I wake up, you know, so one day I'm going to have 2.2 million and pay off my $1.8 million debt.
God, yeah.
And the very next day, I owe $1.8 million, and I have a job that pays no money.
Mm-hmm.
And then to make it worse, and you know what this is like when you have a relationship with the Lord, he says you can't go bankrupt. Because I have this is my perfect opportunity to go bankrupt. This is what bankruptcy is for.
100%.
And the Lord said, no, you won't be doing that. So, you know, it was a three years of faithfulness of the Lord paying all that back, and much of it got forgiven. Someone prayed for me, and 3 months later, half of it got forgiven. So I went from 1.8 to 900,000.
Wow.
But 900,000 when you don't have a job that pays anything.
That's crazy. I mean, and what year was this when this happened?
Oh goodness, this was 25 years ago.
Yeah, so 900,000.
That was a lot of money.
Almost multi-million.
Yeah, and most of my business headquarters was in Weirville, and for about 3 years, I couldn't even drive through the town. Dang. I would just break out weeping.
Wow.
Because you know all the things,
Yeah.
and then what people say about you.
Yep.
You know, because they're like they don't care that there was a deal. They're just like, oh, he's a flake. You know, and you have to deal with all of that. Like now you can't pay your bills. You got 127 suppliers you can't pay. Probably 30 of those were personal friends. You know, I mean, you make friends when you're doing business. So it was. That's why I've said like sometimes what you're learning in failure isn't just about, well, hey, you should have known about the contract.
Yeah.
You should have understood that something was wrong.
Yeah.
You learn all those lessons, but you learn a lot about you.
100%. Yeah.
And
Wow.
I was trying to fix it for like 3 months. I tried to fix it. And my wife, who's my business partner, wakes up one morning. This is a true story. She turns to me and she said, I'm done. Do whatever you want, but don't include me. I'm done.
Wow.
And I'm like, we're partners. Like, there's no way I can do it without you. And so that was the day I called the bank. And that was the most embarrassing conversation I ever had.
Dang.
To this day, that marks as the most embarrassing conversation I ever had. They had lent me an extra $300,000 in the middle of the process, looking at the contract I had, and basically on my word. And I had to call them and say, I won't ever pay you back. That was a really tough conversation. And it wasn't for me about money. It was about, my grandfather said, your word is your bond.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I walked with this stigma of being a failure, not failing, being a failure. And that was a tough 2 years.
Yeah. It feels like it's such a personal, it's like part of your identity.
Yeah.
It's hard to separate that. It's hard to separate failure from your identity.
It is.
Because you feel like it's like, this is proof that I'm not going to achieve or I'm not good enough. And it's really hard. And I think that's why I'm a fan of, if I'm coaching or mentoring someone, like you wouldn't go to the gym for their first time and try to lift 300 pounds.
No.
You'd break your stuff, you know?
Yeah. You break your stuff for sure. And your other stuff,
yeah,
too.
and your other stuff.
All your stuff.
And you would, and you'd be probably traumatized and probably wouldn't go back to the gym.
Yeah.
If you went and tried to lift 300 pounds and you broke your arm, you'd be traumatizing.
Yeah.
You go in and you go like, what's easy for me to lift now? That might wear me out a little bit.
Yeah.
You just barely push past that point. And I feel like failure is very similar. If people think of failure and they're like, it needs to be this massive risk where I jump off a cliff or I go do this crazy thing where there's a lot of potential for public humiliation. It's like, if you want to be a public speaker, don't try to get a TED Talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Get 10 of your friends and say, hey, I'm really nervous and scared. I'm going to talk to you about the subject I wrote and practice public speaking. And then you do that. And then maybe you share a testimony at your church in front of everybody. And then and it's like it's like doing reps.
Yeah.
Failure is like reps. You do a level 1 out of 10, then maybe a 2 out of 10. And then you get an opportunity to do a 7 out of 10. And you say, can I do this? Do I have the emotional ability? And then you progress that way. And that's why I'm because you have a failure like you did. You didn't really have a choice for that. That was an educational experience that happened.
Yeah.
But and a lot of these failures people avoid because they have the option whether to take the risk or not. And there's this fear of taking the risk because massive things happen that they don't like. And they're like, I don't want to add any more to my crazy life. And it doesn't have to be as high stakes as you think it does.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, too, having people around you that can look at your situation while you're in the midst of it and give you some honest feedback when you're living in fantasy.
Yeah.
Having, like, when you, and your example, when you do your first talk with your 10 friends, and your friends are always like, "That was great." You're like, I need real feedback.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah,
That's huge.
right.
Yeah.
I need real feedback.
Yeah.
Like you're not helping me. And they're like, "Oh, that was kind of boring," or the first half of it was not good, or that story you told wasn't clear.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, those are the kind of failures that absolutely lead to success.
Yeah. And it's so hard. It's so hard to go on stage and to release a piece of art, and people are like, "That wasn't good." Because you're like, "That was me." No, it wasn't you. That was an extension of you that's not perfected. And like, it's so hard for people to realize that is not, it's not a piece of who you are. Like what you create and what you release, it's like, it's a piece of something inside of you that you're releasing to the world, but it's not your identity. And for me, and I understand, like I give feedback sometimes and people maybe shut down and don't know what to do with it.
It's painful. Yeah.
It's painful. But the way my brain operates is I want to know the painful stuff, because I would rather it be embarrassing with you than on a bigger scale,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. And I sometimes
Have you ever had did you have your book edited by an outside editor?
Well, I had, so there's
painful?
several chapters in there that I sent to people who it concerned. Like there's a chapter called to the school teachers, and it's talking to school teachers about how they need to embrace failure and let failure in the classroom.
Yeah.
I sent that letter to about 50 school teachers, and I said, I need honest feedback. Don't blow, don't fill me up with praise. I need to know what your honest opinion is. And I had some pretty harsh feedback at first, and I needed that because I'm like, I don't want teachers to read this and feel like I'm villainizing them. I want them to feel like charged and motivated to accept failure into their class. So I redid that chapter 3 or 4 times until I sent it, and they're like, this feels like it's honoring to teachers and it's encouraging us to invite failure into the school system.
I remember my first book. I wrote a book and sent it to an editor, and it came back like covered in red, and that wasn't the words of Jesus.
Yep, no.
It wasn't the words of Jesus. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I cried.
Oh, no.
I literally cried. Like I had never written a book before. I had no idea. Like that's what they do.
Oh,
like
no.
editors are brutal, right?
Yep.
And this is like your
Yep.
baby. You're like, I love this book. Like,
Yeah.
my baby. Don't tell me my baby's ugly, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's the only way you learn how to write well. It's the only way you learn how to do life well.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge is we have to not live, like in my case, I had to not live past present. I had to learn how to live future present, because otherwise I kind of have the PTSD thing, and I spend my life trying to not fail again. And you don't learn anything from that.
You don't. Yeah.
Well, okay, last thing you want to say. Anything you want to say? We're going to close. An inspirational thought of Bryant Ellis.
So much pressure.
So much pressure right now. You could fail. This could not be good.
I don't know, and maybe this is me beating a dead horse or going back to something I already said, but I feel like maybe there's people listening to this podcast who have avoided failure because it feels like it's all or nothing. Like it's high stakes. Like if you decide to go on this journey that you're going to be faced with humiliation, embarrassment, and all of this crazy stuff's going to happen. And I don't like doing stuff like that. And I like failure because failure is inviting you into a process of taking baby steps to where a level 7 on a scale of 1 to 10 failure right now might feel like a 1 in a year. Like you start taking the baby steps now, the ones that you think, like an example, being on a podcast with you. 2 years ago, I would have been throwing up the whole way here. Because it'd be terrifying. You have a large audience and you're very well known and respected. But how I started my process is I'm gonna have my own podcast. I'm gonna go speak on a podcast that has 10 downloads, that has 20 downloads. And it's repetition that builds confidence.
Yep.
And so I just want to encourage people that it's not a journey you have to go on that's going to uproot and destroy and add chaos to your life. It's something that is baby steps towards pursuing what you're passionate about. And it's baby steps in like breakthrough.
So beautiful.
I think that's what I would say.
Yeah, and so I just want to say thank you for joining us. This has been an incredibly enlightening journey, and I actually didn't know part of your journey, so even though I know you pretty well. And I do want to add, too, some of you have failed, and you're like, I'm a failure. The only reason you're a failure if you failed is if you quit. If you quit, you're a failure. If you learn from it and move on, you're a success. And failure becomes your mentor, your guide, your friend, really. And you'll love again. You'll make money again. You'll win that thing again. It will happen if you learn and refuse to quit. God bless you. Join us next week when we have another great guest.